Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Radio KBE, another live stream. And we have some updates that we have to cover. As always, I appreciate you guys joining the stream. As always, I really appreciate it. If you go to Radio KBE on the YouTube, you can like the channel, subscribe. You can participate in the chats when we do that, the question and answer parts, and we just kind of discuss the stuff that's going on. And so for today's episode, and um, that will be sort of the theme, just the stuff that's gone on today. For today's episode, what I wanted to discuss was sort of the stuff, obviously the big thing is the trade that just happened. The other thing I also wanted to talk about was some of the stuff that's been going on outside of it. I apologize if I look a little haggard. I just got out of yoga class, so it was very good. But I probably look like I just got out of a workout myself. So that's really why I look like this. But anyways, I wanted to talk about the trade itself, and then I wanted to talk about just kind of some of the stuff that's going to go on like after this, and the stuff that you've been hearing in regards to just what the next moves for the Lakers are going to be. I know there's a lot of um, concern right now that like the status quo isn't really going to change with this team and stuff like that. When it comes to, are we going to keep Russ? Are we going to move Russ? What does adding more or less Russ's arch nemesis to the roster via trade mean and stuff like that? And so, obviously there's a lot of different stuff that's going on with the team right now, but it's still very much in sort of a transition phase. And so, let's just go ahead and jump into it. And so we traded Talon, and we traded Stanley for Patrick Beverley. It wasn't. I actually, like I said, if you guys have watched the videos, you guys have hung with me since I started Radio KBE. Like I've been saying, that the Lonnie Walker signing him with the MLE made it like very, very clear that like we were going to like one of those guys. There's too many players that play the same position, so we had Lonnie, Nunn, Talon, Reeves, and Russ. That was five guys that played more or less the same position. I mean, some of them were combo guards and stuff like that, but really it was all the same thing. And so it's no surprise that Talon got moved. I didn't think he would be the first person I didn't think he'd get moved before Russ, but considering that Russ is a larger salary, and if he's part of a more complex deal, like we have to wait on the other teams to make their decisions and stuff about it. So maybe that's the reason why I went. But Talon getting moved wasn't originally like he was going to get moved. I thought that was happening for sure. If Russ, regardless of whatever happened with Russ and stuff like that, there was just it's a salary thing, and then on top of that, it's just you don't sign another 6'5" guard in Lonnie Walker when you have Kendrick Nunn potentially coming back 100%. Like unless you're going to move one of those guys, and we know that like Austin Reeves, because of his salary being so low, and because the Lakers drafted him, like they're going to probably hold on to him. They're not going to move him or anything. So they weren't going to move him. So we knew that Reeves was probably the only person that was safe out of those five names. And so one of the guys is gone now officially. And then obviously Lonnie was, because you can't trade him once until like December or something like that. And so, we traded Talon and Stanley for Pat. I know a lot of folks are very upset about like Stanley, not very upset, but there's, grumblings about letting Stanley go and stuff like that. But I just want to like pump the brakes a little bit, because he was good for us. He was good for us in stretches when we needed a physical wing defender that could battle with other physical wing defenders. Like he like fit the bill. He had that moment against in the comeback win, the game where Anthony Davis went down against the Utah Jazz, where like Russ exploded, and Stanley had he just kept attacking Rudy Gobert and getting layups in the fourth quarter and stuff like that. So like I understand his value, but he's very much still sort of a raw player, still trying to sort of figure his way out around the league. And one of the things I think that does play in his favor is he's a smart guy. He's very very cerebral, and he's very tough. So I think like he's like I think he'll get his reps in Utah. He'll have his moments where he looks good, but again, if you just look at the way business works, like the Lakers are hand in hand with Clutch. The fact that our first two signings, or not first two, but of our first four free agent signings, like three of them were Clutch guys, right? Toscano Anderson, Troy Brown Jr., Lonnie Walker, like all of those guys being signed automatic. Like Clutch is not sending just random guys to the Lakers. They're sending guys that they think are going to turn around and add value to the team and stuff like that, or they'll get minutes and stuff like that. That's how I knew Taylor was going to get moved, because of the positional logjam. That's also how I knew, like I didn't think that they would move Stanley, because I thought they'd try to hold on to as many wings as they possibly could. But I realized that, like I'm not surprised that they moved Stanley, because they had Troy Brown and Toscano Anderson. Like it sort of makes sense that's like sort of the direction that they went in. And then, there was no way that the Lakers could trade Taylor for Pat just 1-for-1. They were like short. I think Eric Pincus tweeted it out a little bit earlier, but they were short by like 100K or something like that. So they had to add somebody, but they didn't add Wenyen, surprisingly, because Stanley makes more than Wenyen does. But they didn't add Wenyen to that deal. So maybe they like Wenyen as sort of like a backup 4-5, third center, third power forward sort of player on the team and stuff. Again, Wenyen also had some moments for himself too as well. So for me, it's just a matter of like figuring out like why they did that. So as the trade happened, everybody's reacting to it and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things, if you guys remember, when I discussed that three-way trade with the Jazz and the Knicks, one of the things that I had mentioned is that the Lakers would have to wait to try and get any of those players that came in the Gobert trade, specifically Patrick Beverley. They'd have to wait until like the week of September 4th. I think it's like September 6th or September 9th, some date range right after September 4th, where they would have to wait until that point for the trade restriction to lift, because you have to wait 60 days if you're going to trade a player that you just received with another player that wasn't originally part of the deal. So that's just how the CBA works. You have to wait 60 days. The only way that you don't have that restriction is if a player gets traded into your cap space. That's not what the Jazz did. And then the other thing is if you trade that player by himself. So, the Jazz got Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley were like the more notable salaries that they get. If they wanted to tomorrow, they could trade Jared Vanderbilt by himself to another team. There's no trade restriction. Same thing for Malik, and then that's exactly what happened with Patrick Beverley. So the reason why this trade happened was because it was just a 1-for-1, right? So they traded Pat for not 1-for-1, sorry. It was just one player outgoing from the Jazz. So it was just Pat. So that's why that trade was possible now. I thought that they would wait if there was going to be a larger deal. So like just Russ going to Utah, and then just Russ going to Utah, and then certain players coming back from Utah, Minnesota, like guys from the Gobert trade, like Pat, along with guys like Bojan and stuff like that. And like I'm not surprised that, and you shouldn't be either. Like if you guys have been watching this with me, like we've been telegraphing this Utah deal for, I don't know, weeks now, maybe months now. Like if the Kyrie thing wasn't going to fall through, like this is their next best alternative. So one thing that seems very clear is the Lakers wanted to get this Beverley deal done now. They didn't want to wait, and so they moved Taylor and they moved Stanley to get him. So now it's created a logjam, right? Like trading Taylor out didn't actually fix anything, and bringing in Pat in the sense of positional logjam, not in the sense of skill. Like Pat is an uber rebounder. He's like one of the best rebounding guards in the league. He has, he's got his point of attack defense is really good. He's a very pesky defender. He doesn't typically you have to use a screen to get him off of you. Sometimes he can be a little over aggressive, and that leads to early foul trouble and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's sound. The main knock on him is probably two things. One, he doesn't stay healthy, which is a concern. But again, if Ham is really good with how he just decides to do stuff, how he runs his rotations, that should be okay. Keep your fingers crossed. But it's not just limited to Beverley. It's limited. Like we need Braun to be healthy. We need AD to be healthy. So it doesn't even matter. It's a concern for everybody. That's one concern. His injury situation. Can he stay healthy enough to be helpful in the regular season, and then also be available in the playoffs? And then the other thing is also the antics. Like everybody hates him for the antics and the theatrics that he does. Not the flopping stuff because everybody does that. He does that a little bit more, but it's just too much on-court theatrics. And so I don't know about you guys, but I'm very, very superstitious when it comes to basketball. Like I always say, basketball gods are always watching because I believe that. And one of the things I believe is as competitive as players can be, there can be players that bring like bad juju to your team, like bad energy to your team in the sense where they don't know how to draw a line between their competitive nature versus another player and then have it not take over the game, right? Like it's no different than doing a group project and then you have a guy in the group project that's just has a bad attitude about working with other people or just complains or doesn't help at all. Just the energy you get off him. I'm not saying Pat is that guy. I'm saying that sometimes there are situations where he becomes more than what the game is going on. Like if you're a Lakers fan, you've seen that, right? Like the games against the Clippers, sometimes he just goes out of his way to try and antagonize LeBron to the point where it's actually distracting from the game itself. And you've seen Kawhi and some other guys just kind of be like, just cut it out. Like just play defense, play good basketball, move forward and stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing. It's not bad to be competitive, and that's just who he is. We have to accept him for who he is. But I would say that's hopefully Ty Lue did a pretty good job reining it in to some degree. But like that's something to be aware of. I think Darvin Ham will be fine. I think Pat will buy in, and now he's playing next to a guy like LeBron, so I think he'll buy in and stuff like that. The antics are probably just the one thing it's that you have to be concerned about. Not that he does it, but just that it like infects the team, right? Like, because if he starts trash talking and another guy starts trash talking, now the other team's got a big chip on their shoulder, and they're like now they're playing with more effort, more energy, and they're much more serious. But that's just basketball. That's competition. That's how it works. So that stuff is okay. But it's sorry, give me 1 second. Let me just share this. We're live. I didn't tell the timeline that we were live. You guys are locked in, so you guys show up every single time and stuff like that. But for the newcomers, they don't know. But yeah, that's really the only concern. Like from a basketball fit standpoint, he can play the one. He can play like the small two because Pat's a physical defender. Even though he loses an advantage in height sometimes when he's guarding like a 6'4" or 6'5" guy, he knows how to crowd your space. He knows how to sort of get into like your the area that you want to get to. So you could put him on a guy like Devin Booker, and he's not going to stop him, but he can get into his space. He can make him work. And then obviously, he calls himself Mr. 94 feet. So he's going to press guys. You could deploy him in that role where he's pressing guys and grinding them down and stuff like that, over the course of the game, tiring them out, hopefully up until the fourth quarter. So, like that kind of stuff is very helpful. Lakers didn't have a guy like that. We didn't have a guy like that until, we didn't have a guy like that until, Caruso was on this team. And then Caruso was gone. And I've seen the tweets of people saying that, we let Caruso walk and we kept Taylor, and then we traded Taylor for another version of Caruso. Yeah, like what did we've talked about it, in the chat, and we've talked about it on the streams. Like there was no basketball reason to let Caruso go. There was absolutely none. But that didn't, but I don't know how our front office came to that decision. Like I think now it's very clear that it wasn't a basketball decision. Unless the front office genuinely believed Taylor could fill the role that that Caruso, filled for the Lakers when they let Caruso go. And then, obviously he didn't. And to some degree, he probably regressed more than what we saw from his rookie season. But look, Taylor's going to go to Utah. There's going to be, they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell. They're not going to have, like any expectations. And Taylor's just going to get the rock, and he's going to get to go downhill. He's going to score. He's going to have highlights, and I am 1,000% positive that next season, you're going to get Taylor Horton Tucker highlights with the Jazz, and you're going to get all the wonderful NBA aggregator accounts doing the same thing that they do every single year, where they say, "Oh, the Lakers let this guy go. Like, what are they doing?" Like, the fit wasn't there. Like, he needs room to grow, to become a better player. He's a young guy. He has to be able to work through his mistakes. He wasn't going to be able to do that next to LeBron. No player can do that next to LeBron. Like, you have to know who you are as a player, because that's the expectations that this team has. You have to know who you are. And so Pat knows who he is. He is a guy who very much understands what his role is in the league, and he does it very well. And he doesn't deviate from it. But, he's always willing to do more if that's what's asked for him. So I like him. I like his rebounding profile a lot. I like his point of attack defense. And I do like his rebounding profile a lot in this 4-out sort of alignment that Jarvin Ham's going to use. There's going to be a lot of rebounds that just go into no man's land. Like, you need to have somebody who's not Anthony Davis or who's not LeBron James, like, chasing those rebounds down. It's got to be the other three guys. Like, LeBron's 1,000 years old. You don't want him to be the guy that is running around grabbing all these rebounds and stuff like that. And it's not fair to expect Anthony Davis to do that too as well, especially if he's the one defending shots at the rim and doing stuff like that. So it's good to get guys like that. Troy Brown has a good rebounding motor. Toscano Anderson has a good rebounding motor. Like, that has been the core theme. Like, obviously we have athletes that are coming into our team, but we have guys that are willing to go and help their teammates rebound and just be a good team rebounding team. That's how you finish off good defensive possessions. That's how you start transition possessions for easy buckets and stuff like that. So I do like the addition. And, of course, I wish well to Taylor. But, we move forward now. So, now we're to sort of what everybody's, in this position, and everybody's just like kind of concerned about that Pat and Russ are on the team together. And LeBron's tweeting today with his buddy, and then with, I think, David Jones, about, like, being excited for Russ and stuff like that. Like, I'm going to be really honest. I'm not buying it. Like, I tweeted out, like, it's the scene from Godfather where Pacino's character kisses Fredo, and then it's just like, if you watch The Godfather, you know what that scene is about. That's one of Ron's favorite movies or something like that. And if you haven't watched it, I highly encourage you watch it. But, like, well, it's been like 2.5 months. It's been 3 months. Like, we don't have to do this. Like this pretending that I was always on your side, or pretending like I know he can play better. Like, there was many opportunities up until this point. Like, there are national writers that have gone on national television and straight up said LeBron James wants Kyrie Irving. Like, I'm like, after the summer league thing, like, there's literally been people coming out and saying Russ and LeBron don't get along. Like, they like, Russ knows that LeBron wants Kyrie, so he wants that they do. At no point has either one of those guys refuted anything. Either of them. Right? I'm not going to say just Braun, because I don't want to blame him for it. But neither of them have refuted anything. They haven't even gone so far since those stories have come out and done even like Lakers Twitter loves the TMZ shit, right? Like, we love looking to see, what did he like, and what did this person comment on, stuff like that. They haven't even done that. Like, they sound like Braun is in the IG comments saying stuff like, like congratulating Russ for something, or Russ is doing that for LeBron, because they've been active, right? They've been active at Summer League. I believe Russ went to the Nike Peach Jam. LeBron goes that to every year. We got no intel. Nobody said that those two guys ran into each other. We know at the summer league they never ran into each other. I think both of them, I may be wrong, but I think both of them went to Kevin Love's wedding, and there was a big hubbub about like, oh, they weren't seen together. So like I get it. Like I understand that how it is, but like for me at this point, it's just like you're insulting I feel like you're insulting the audience, right? Like we can see through it. Like we know you don't want Russ there. And then the part that makes it even more silly is that you traded for a guy who we know Russ does not like, not because of who he is as a player, but because that player is directly responsible for Russ tearing his meniscus years ago in Oklahoma City, ending his season. So this is not like some sort of and obviously there's the comments about like Patrick Beverley tricking the league, and then literally months ago, Patrick Beverley's tweets out about Russ being the magician, just making jokes and stuff like that. And again, that's just basketball. People can make jokes and stuff like that. That's fine. But if a player feels like you injured them with a reckless play intentionally, not to try to injure, but you just made an intentional reckless play that cost him, like a year of his basketball. And remember, that was when OKC was like good. Like that was a team that people thought could go to the Western Conference Finals multiple times. Like that's not something that just goes away. And it's not as if Patrick Beverley was apologetic about what he did, right? Like they've never, I don't think they've ever reconciled since that point, clearly, because they're still jawing at each other the past season. So it's like this idea. So like the stuff, I can't think of the right word. I tweeted it and I deleted it because Damon Jones posted it. So I don't need people in my mentions, but it's just corny. Like it's just corny. Like it doesn't matter to me that people in Braun's circle are saying, well, it's unfair to have all this vitriol and stuff like that. You could have said that months ago. You could have said that during the season, but nobody said anything. Everybody just sat by. And if everybody just sat by and just said, well, no, he's just got to play better, and then they won't do that to them. So it's just like that part is all silly. Like, and then out of the blue, 2 months later, to start tweeting about you being excited to see him, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that him and Pat can reconcile. I think Pat is a team player and he'll try to. I don't think Russ is going to. And then take all of that stuff away. Just take it all away. Take everything away that you saw with Pat. Take everything away that you saw with the lack of interaction between LeBron and Russ. And just think about what this front office did to him. Not from a basketball standpoint, but from a character standpoint. That is a burnt bridge. You cannot come back from that. And I think that's the part that you guys, like not you guys, but like that's the part that people are forgetting. Our front office went very far in a direction to attack him. I don't think he's going to come back. I don't think he wants to be here. I think Russ is a pro, like a professional. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't said anything bad about the front office. He hasn't said anything bad about LeBron. Like if he had never showed up to the summer league thing, you would have just thought like we would have not even had an inkling of anything going on with them. But obviously that tipped it off. And then the Chris Haynes story that came out like a week after that, saying that they all jumped on a phone call a week before summer league. It's funny. Like we believe a lot of stuff. Fans are short, fan is short for fanatic. So we'll believe everything. But I would like to assume that you guys are smart enough to read between the lines when it comes to this sort of stuff. So does that mean that like they're not going to be in training camp together? No, Russ is going to show up because he can't do anything, right? Like there's no option, right? Like he can't he's not going to ask for demand a trade because that hurts the Lakers' leverage position. He's not going to ask for a buyout because it's typically just not what he would do. So he's just going to be a pro. He's just going to show up to camp. People have said Russ hasn't shown up to the practice facility. He's going to show up. Like eventually when they call everybody and he's still on the team, he's going to show up. He's not going to no-show the training camp. He's never done anything. Like the 14, 15 years, he's never been a bad teammate. Like he may have his back and forths, like basketball-related back and forths, but he's never been bad to an organization or bad to like an entire team. And even then, this front office went really, really far out of their way to attack his character. He's not coming back. I don't believe it. Like I think the last live stream or the one before that, I specifically said if I had to, somebody asked the question, if I had to take a guess, what's the percentage chance that he'll show up at training camp? I think it's less. Still think it's less than 10%. Like I think they are going to try and move him before training camp starts. That's what makes all this the tweeting stuff so like it's corny. Like there's no need to do that. But it is what it is. I don't know what goes on behind it, and players are allowed to be who they are. So whatever the issues are, they'll deal with it. But in my opinion, I'm just not buying it. I think Russ is going to get moved. So that moves us to like the next section of where Russ is going to go. And so I think so. One of the things that happened with this Taylor and Patrick Beverley trade is it basically told us that now we know for sure that the only player that the Lakers were trying to get out of that Gobert trade was Patrick Beverley. So they didn't want Malik Beasley. They didn't want Jared Vanderbilt because they could have traded for them there, right? Like you can aggregate them together as long as it's not, or you could have done that. So chances are what's going to end up happening now is if the Lakers want tonight, while this live stream is going on, if they want to trade Russ and they only bring back Jazz players, right, the existing Jazz players that weren't part of the Gobert trade, if they do, let's say they do the Jazz, Knicks, Lakers three-way, like they can do that now. They don't have to wait because they got the guy that they wanted from the Gobert trade. So as long as they're not asking for any other guys from the Gobert trade, there's no restriction. There's nothing to wait on. So they could do that. Or they could do what other writers have rumored about, which is they could turn around and they can go and reach out to the Pacers and work with them in regards to it. But they basically got who the replacement point guard is probably going to be for Russ. So that kind of brings us to the different options that are potentially available. So I think the three teams that have been named so far, and I think Eric Pincus wrote for Bleacher Report just recently. I'll see if I can find the article as I'm talking to you guys, but it's hard for me not to be distracted. But like, I think you mentioned it was like either Indiana, and I know Jovan mentioned it in the space. It's either Indiana, they can revisit the facilitating Mitchell to the Knicks, or they can, like the Spurs or something like that. Of those three options, the Spurs are probably the least likely option. A, because Greg Popovich hates us, and B, I don't think they have like the players that we really want. The second option, well, basically the first option, second option are basically a tie depending on who you're up and down on, right? So one option is what you're hearing, which is Miles Turner and Buddy Hield if it's a 1-to-1 trade between just two teams, and then the other option is getting the other guy that Shams mentioned in his tweet was Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan would probably not be a straight swap with Russ. It would probably be to facilitate that Donovan Mitchell trade. So that's the thing. If you guys remember the framework of the Donovan Mitchell trade that I mentioned, there was 4 players that I had coming back. I thought that if the Lakers can land these 4 players, it would be like an ideal. This is as close to an ideal or perfect return you can have. One was Patrick Beverley. The next one was Bojan Bogdanovic. The third player was Evan Fournier, and the last player was Cam Reddish, right? You basically had Pat, who's a 6'1", all defensive caliber point of attack defender. And then the other 3 guys are shooting wings, right? I mean, Fournier can shoot. He's 6'6", 6'7". Bojan is 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", I would say. Can shoot the ball, shoot the ball like crazy. And Cam Reddish, young guy, potential blue chip prospect, a guy that the Lakers have tried to get. Again, he's also clutch too as well. But again, 6'8", 6'9" guy who can shoot the ball potentially, can grow, over the next couple of years and stuff like that. So you have, I would eliminate the Spurs option. The only way I think the Spurs ever get involved in the deal with the Lakers is if Kyrie is back on the menu. And we don't know when that's going to happen. So I'm not really sweating that at all. So it's really, I think, between Indiana and Utah. And I do think, me personally, I'm not a fan of the Indiana trade if it costs too much. That's my biggest concern with the deal, because these deals have to be cost prohibitive. They didn't send anything with Taylor to get Pat. Nothing. Remember, last year, the same people are saying, "Oh, I can't believe they gave him Taylor." Like, last year people were saying that you have to give up a first with Talon to get somebody back good. And we can argue about whether Pat is good or not, but I would say he's an excellent defender at his position, excellent rebounder at his position. Like that's a pretty good, like Stanley's expendable, played a couple games for us, so he's just really salary filler. But a straight swap of Talon for Pat in terms of what Darvin Ham needs and the philosophy that he needs, I think that was a great trade. I think that was really good. So now I'm thinking of it from how do we fill out the stuff that we need? And so I think Brian Windhorst recently mentioned, or just today, he mentioned that the Lakers are targeting shooting. If you're targeting shooting, Buddy Hield makes a ton of sense for that specifically. But Miles Turner isn't like, you're not running plays for Miles Turner. You get what I'm saying? Like when you're targeting shooters, you're targeting shooters that are either lights out 3-and-D catch and shoot guys who are just going to always be ready and shoot the ball, or guys that you're running sets for, like you're running pin down screens for them. They run their lanes in transition. They're going, to get themselves open. They screen, cut, all that sort of stuff, and they're great 3-point shooters. So Miles Turner doesn't fit that mold. I understand the defensive ability. I understand. I mean, I don't know some of the numbers that people have been sharing about his catch and shoot numbers. It's not matching up with what's actually in the NBA database. So I'm hesitant about it, retweeting it and stuff like that. But not so. Even if he is capable of shooting threes and stuff like that, like you're not running plays for him. Like Turner shoots a maximum of 9 times a game for Indiana currently. 9 times. Is it worth spending a first for a guy that you can only use one way? That's the way I sort of think of it. And like I mentioned before, if it was a first and you get Kyrie, you get Hield, like if you get more value for those first round picks, especially if they're supposed to be unprotected. I also think the Lakers aren't going to try and give up unprotected picks. They're going to try and protect them top 10, top 4, stuff like that. I'm not so keen on that. I like the idea of getting those other 3 players and facilitating that Donovan Mitchell trade, because those are real shooters. Like Evan Fournier is a real shooter. He plays both the 3-and-D role and they run actual sets for him to get him open threes. Bojan Bogdanovic is a real shooter. The interesting part, and this is something that I've been talking to folks privately, is that Fournier and Bojan, they're both like they're like these European players. They have like no conscience when they go into like these big game moments. Stuff like they'll just let it fly. They're not, and like that's something to some degree that we need in LA, because it's like the Vujicic thing. It's if you watch a lot of basketball, you just kind of know these guys have played in high stakes environments overseas, for their countries and in FIBA Olympics and Olympics and stuff like that. So they're not like, the pressure doesn't hit them. Not to say that, they're above pressure or they're like clutch like LeBron, but it's just the day-to-day pressure that you get for playing for the Lakers, that can be a lot, and that can affect that. Not everybody's built to deal with that and stuff like that. But these guys are more than capable because they've been in hostile environments before, both in the NBA and outside of the NBA too as well. And it's even worse when you go outside of the United States with how fans can behave and stuff like that. So I like that idea. I like the idea of getting more shooters that are wings that can function as like these 3-and-D guys. And it's like a guy like Bojan is especially good because of the offense that Utah ran. There's a natural transition for him, right? He's just if he goes from Utah's offense to what Darvin Ham's offense is going to be, then he's set. There's nothing like the style of play that he likes to play won't change. The only thing that does change is he's not starting, and so that's one of the things that's worth thinking about, or it's something that may bring pause to. For him, like he may want a starting position because he's an expiring salary. He wants to make more money. He's making close to $20 million right now. Like, is he going to make more than that? Is he going to get to 25, 30? Is some team going to give him that? Probably not. So if the Lakers think that they can get him on a 2-year deal or extend him or something, that would be the smart thing to do. The only hiccup I see with those 2 deals is, or with that Utah deal is that Evan Fournier has 1 extra year next year. So he's this year, and then he has, I think, a player option for $18 million for next year. I don't know if the Lakers will, because I don't know what they're preserving cap space for. They shouldn't be trying to preserve cap space. Like, they may not take a non-expiring salary because Russ is expiring. I don't agree with that, but I don't know how this front office operates. They could be thinking that they can get Kyrie in the offseason next season. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. The max salary that they can open is $31 to $32 million. That's the most. That's well below what Kyrie's actual max is on the market. That doesn't mean Kyrie's going to get the max from, like a $40 million max from another team, but who knows? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how free agency works. And by midseason, there could be a ton of teams that are looking to, either start competing or change direction completely. So, but then again, if you look at the Indiana trade, like Buddy Hield has what, 22 million or 20 million left. Like, he has an extra year at 20 million. So I think it's probably going to come down to those two options, unless some dark horse team like Charlotte or something like that just shows up, or if the KD Kyrie saga takes another plot twist and goes in a direction where it seems like Kyrie's going to leave. I think it's probably down to those teams if a deal is made. And I think whichever one is the least expensive pick-wise is the one that's going to go. So the fact that Indiana's been broadcasting that they require 2 first-round picks for their 2 players, I think it's just they're going to remove themselves from contention. Then it's just going to come down to what deal makes a lot of sense. And remember, we've just made a deal with Utah. So the idea that Danny Ainge won't make a deal with the Lakers, like, from a basketball talent perspective, I would say that Patrick Beverley is probably better than Talen. He obviously doesn't have the upside, but he's right now better. He's an upgrade in that single position compared to Talen. So it's not like he's helping us out. And then on top of that, Talen had an extra $10 million. He has a $10 million player option next year. So he took on more money. So the total guaranteed potential money for that Utah took on was $23 million, right? $20 million from Talen, total $3 million from Stanley. And they gave us an expiring of $13 million. So that's the total amount of it. So they took on more total money, and we didn't even have to give a pick to do it. So I think, like I said, I think if they did this move, it's probably because they wanted to remove the concern about, the trade restriction and all that sort of stuff that's going on with it. I don't know when the trade is going to happen, if it's going to happen, all that sort of stuff. But the thing that I would say is this now removes the concern about aggregating trades. So now it can happen. So easiest way for this to work is the way that we've essentially described it. And it's Russ going to Utah. Utah sends Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks. They send Bojan to the Lakers. Maybe we have to eat a salary like Rudy Gay or something like that. Lakers absorb Fournier. Lakers absorb Reddish. Maybe we don't get Reddish. Maybe we get Reddish. I don't know. And then that's it. And then, not that's it. Like, New York sends, however many picks. So what we're doing, because Utah took money from us, total dollar value, now we're going to take money for Utah. If I'm Rob Pelinka, that's the way I'm pitching it to Danny Ainge. You took an extra $9 million to $10 million in this deal with Talen, total guaranteed money that you're going to have to owe. So what I'm going to do, you scratch my back, so now I'm going to scratch yours. I will give you Russ. I will take Bojan. I will take the total $36 million that Fournier is going to cost you. I will eat that salary. I will eat Cam Reddish's salary. And then on top of that, because you took Stanley and created an extra roster spot for me, I'll take one of the salaries that you don't want. So send me either Rudy Gay or send me Jordan Clarkson, whoever you don't want, because those are the only 2 guys. Mike Conley's got a big salary too, but I don't think he's like an $11 million unguaranteed player. I don't think they're going to move him. I don't think the Lakers will take him back, especially now that they got Pat. It doesn't make any sense. Like, Lakers will offer to take. That would be the smart thing to do. Offer to take Bojan and Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay, end of the bench guy. He's very old, end of his career. But maybe he's a good locker room guy. Maybe he's a good, vet guy, doesn't complain, gets good reps, have him defend LeBron, like having in practices and stuff like that. So, good game reps and stuff like that. So you take those two guys, you take Fournier, you take Reddish. Now you have much more shooting. Now you have interchangeable guys. Now when LeBron sits out, Bojan can start. Or when Anthony Davis sits out, Bojan can start at the 4, right? Like if you're trying to pitch it to Bojan, you can say, look, we probably got about 35 to 40 games that we can start you this season. Like we can't start you all the time because it's LeBron and Anthony Davis, but we can get you 24 to 30 minutes a night and we can get you to start. We can get starts for you because LeBron's going to sit out 15 games and Anthony Davis is probably going to sit out 15 games. And, it's going to be in like December because we went over the schedule. There's like 2 months in the year where they play like 5 games a week. And so like those are the games, like, those are the months where we really need to lean on guys like that. And I can see a lineup of the same way people say that they can see a lineup of Pat, Buddy Hield, LeBron, AD, and Miles Turner working. I could also see lineups of Pat, Fournier, LeBron, AD, one of Damian Jones or Thomas Bryant. And then I can also see when LeBron sits out, I could see how a lineup of Pat, Fournier, Bojan, AD, and Thomas Bryant or Damian Jones can win games against teams like OKC, can win games against teams like the Rockets and stuff like that. So it's like very possible that like all these sort of things, like the depth will help the team out. And I think that's necessary. And then remember, as we go on with the season, like the team will get better and the rotations as we get to the playoffs will be shorter. But having that not just the depth, but having the ability to interchange players in and out as we need, that's really important because Ham is not going to go beyond 32 minutes for the team and stuff like that. So I think that's what the next move is going to be. To summarize everything, I don't think Russ is going to be on this roster. I think they're going to try and move him before training camp. I think I've been pretty consistent about that position for months now. We don't need to rehash what it is. It's just way, way, way too much. It got too personal with Russ and his front office. Russ didn't help himself because he didn't play well, and then he was a little more combative with the media. But what this front office did to him wasn't necessary. LeBron tweeting about it is unnecessary. It means nothing. In my opinion, it doesn't mean anything because there were so many opportunities to be supportive. And it just never happened. And then I think they'll try and explore something. I think the Lakers will try to take the most cost prohibitive one. They'll take the option that doesn't require them to give up picks. And I think one thing that Jovan mentioned in the space yesterday, which I think is an important thing, we've discussed it before too, is like the optics of that trade is what matters. Like if Indiana knows that Miles Turner has no market for a first, and Buddy Hield doesn't have a market because he's like, remember Malcolm Brogdon, people are saying that our fans are saying that we should give up 2 firsts for Malcolm Brogdon and Buddy, and they should be unprotected first 5 years from now, 2027, 2029, because that's what we have unavailable. We were saying we should give them up unprotected. Boston gave up a 2023 first round pick unprotected. That's going to be at the, assuming that they replicate the success that they had, even if they don't get to the finals, it's going to be like a bottom, like at the very end of the first round pick. They didn't even get it. They didn't even get the same value that we thought that we were giving. And they sent nothing. They sent nothing for Malcolm Brogdon. They sent Daniel Tice, and that's it. Like he was like the only notable player that they really sent that had decent salary and stuff like that. So if Indiana is hell bent on winning the optics of the trade, it's going to be much harder to do, right? Like because Indiana is just basically going to have to say, yeah, we traded Miles Turner, but we got rid of Buddy Hield. And that was a big win for us, and we got a first rounder out of it. That should be enough for Indiana, but it probably that they may not like that, and they may want 2 firsts. they may think Miles is worth that, even though nobody's like, they still haven't been able to trade him. So that's fine. Like if that's the case, then you go to Utah and you say, okay, what do you want? How can we help you facilitate Donovan Mitchell? Like, okay, the Knicks are only offering you 5 first-round picks. How about we send you one? We'll lightly protect it. We'll only top 4 protect it. But how about we do that and you send us back a couple seconds and we'll take Boyan and we'll send you that first. So then at the end of the day, Utah can say, Danny Ainge can say, I got 6 to 7 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. So now Utah wins, right? Utah wins the optics of the trade because they traded a generational talent for 6 to 7 first-round picks. The Knicks win because they got Donovan Mitchell. That's who they wanted. That's the superstar guy that they wanted. And they saved all these picks up for. And here we are, the Lakers just absorbing players that we need that hopefully help our team get into contention. That's how the optics should be portrayed. That's what Rob should be telling Danny Ainge, and I don't even know who does it on the Knicks side. I don't know if it's Leon Rose is the guy that does it. You tell us which salaries you don't want. We'll absorb it. We'll try and offer picks, but if we can do it without picks, that's helpful. But here's this big, large expiring contract that you can take. You can buy them out. We don't care what you do with them. But how can we make this possible and absorb the salaries that they don't want? Because if those salaries are shooters, that's what this team needs. And so I think that's the way it should go. I think that would be my preference of how it should go and stuff like that. And I think that would help this team go from being a team that doesn't have any shooting skill to a team that has a good amount of shooting skill. We just need to be league average. League average. We don't need a team of 40% three-point shooters. LeBron and AD are going to shoot the ball a lot. Like everybody else is going to shoot when they pass the ball to them. You know what I mean? Or if the set play is called for them. But in all likelihood, LeBron and AD are going to take 20 shots a night. That's a lot of possessions. And then you'll get half of your possessions will be in transition, playing defense, offensive rebounds, blah, blah, blah. And then some of them will be catch and shoot opportunities. We don't need guys that need touches. We need guys that can just shoot the ball when the ball comes to them. And so that's the way I approach it. And then, all the other stuff matters. Health. What does Anthony Davis actually look like and stuff like that? What's his conditioning like? Can LeBron stay healthy? And all that sort of stuff. So, I just wanted to kind of check in now that we've gotten bites of different things and stuff like that when it comes to it, and just kind of discuss what are the next steps going to be? Like, training camp isn't close yet. We're still about a month away, I think, from training camp. I know LeBron has his mini camp and stuff like that that's going on, but Russ is a professional. Like, he is a consummate pro. Like, if he has to show up to training camp, he will show up to training camp. I don't think he's going to be there, but if he has to show up to the practice facility for something, because the team needs him to be there, whatever it is, he's going to be there. Because it's a mutual benefit. If he's trying to find himself a place where he can be in a better position to finish his career or to get that next contract that he wants, he's going to do that because that's just what he's always been. So it's just the way it is and stuff like that. So I think, that's really what's going to happen. I like the Pat Beverley trade. I'm not surprised Taylor got moved. I don't think, the Lakers are going to run with Pat and Russ together. I think Russ is going to get moved. I think now they're just haggling on what the cost of it's going to be. I don't know when it's going to happen. I do think it'll happen before training camp too as well. And that's just basically it, it's just now we're just going to wait. And if it happens, it'll happen just kind of out of the blue and stuff like that. And I'm sure you'll get writers that just kind of give more information. But the one thing we do know with the Pat Beverley trade is that Danny Ainge is willing to make deals if it's in the interest of the Utah Jazz, if it gets the Utah Jazz what they want. So that little bullet point of Danny Ainge isn't going to help the Lakers. Well, he just did. He took more money to send us Pat Beverley, who I'm sure Laker fans despise but are going to love now, myself included. But it's more because of his antics, less because of him as a player. So let me spend I've got about 10 minutes left before we hit the 1 hour mark. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and submit it. If you're on YouTube, it shows up. Unfortunately, I don't see the questions, or it doesn't let me see the questions that get submitted. on Twitter, but I'll display the questions as I read them so you guys can tag along with me. So I'll try to go through these quickly because I really want to try and get some sleep and whatnot. So let me see here. So first and foremost, everybody that joined, Bubby, Ishmael, Andre, Adrian, OG, like appreciate all you guys joining. As always, you guys are basically regulars now in these chats. So let's get to the first question. So Pat, Bev, and Schroeder has two rotational point of attack point guards. Yeah, so like we have two open roster spots now. I don't know how many players we're going to bring back if we trade Russ. So if we do end up having an extra roster spot and we have a need for a point of attack defender, I think Mark Stein has mentioned that there's real interest in the Lakers looking at reuniting with Dennis Schroeder. So I don't know how realistic that's going to be. I'm also of the mind. I know Jovan had Austin penned in as the starting shooting guard. Austin was actually a point guard in college. I think his court vision is a little underrated, and I wouldn't be surprised if Austin ended up being like our backup point guard, more than an off ball. Like he's a backup point guard that can start your offense, but he knows how to just kind of be the off ball guard once the ball's not in his hands, if that sort of makes sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got some ball handling duties and stuff like that. He's very capable of doing that, and he had really nice flashes last season of just kind of heads up plays. Making really great passes to Malik, making great passes to Russ, making great passes to Braun and stuff like that. So it's just, I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. They could go after Schroeder, but I think what will make it tough is just depending on like how many roster spots we have available. Schroeder is going to be a guy that wants to build his value. I don't think he's going to be comfortable just sitting on the bench. So again, if he has an expectation of minutes, we already have a bunch of guys. We have Lonnie, Nunn. If we move Russ, if we don't move Russ, you have Pat. Just there could be you're just adding a little bit more to the logjam, but we'll see. Let's see. Next question that we have here: how do you value Bojan from the Jazz, and do you think Lakers? I think Shams wasn't lying. I think they are interested in him. He's an expiring salary, so of course they're interested in him. He's a guy who can play the 3 and can play the 4. When he was at Indiana, Bojan was a guy back when LeBron was with the Cavs. He was a guy that was checking LeBron. That one series, I think, went to 6 games or 7 games. If there's any Bron fans in the chat, you guys can remind me. Where like Bron just kind of took over and stuff like that. But like Bojan was like trying to check him. He wasn't doing a terrible job. He was doing the best that he could. It's LeBron, but like he's not unfamiliar with like he has to check Kawhi Leonard and stuff like that. So he's a guy that, even though he's not a lockdown defender, he's a body that'll work. Like he'll defend with effort to his ability and stuff like that. So I think he's good. He's a perfect guy to come off the bench and then eventually start for LeBron when LeBron sits. And he can also play stretch 4. That's how Utah would use it at times. And there were stretches of Utah basketball games where it was just Bojan. Like they just gave it to Bojan every play and he would score every single time. Like just open threes and stuff like that. So he comes from, a 4-out offensive scheme. Very easy to transition him. Only question is he okay with coming off the bench for the Lakers? He may be. Who knows? Do you think? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's play main wing defender in the starting lineup since we don't want LeBron guarding Kawhi's and Tatum's for long stretches. Can Pat Bev help with those matchups? So Pat can definitely help with guys like Tatum. Kawhi has a little bit more lower gravity. He's a little bit stronger, so I don't think Pat would necessarily work on him. AD. So my largest concern with AD is that if we deploy. I mean, this is going to happen. So Lakers just going to have to try and figure it out. My largest concern with AD playing the wing and being deployed on wings, the concern is if he's deployed on wings that run around on the perimeter, he's going to get hammered by screens. And when you're that big, it's very hard to get around those screens. So the Lakers are just going to have to be smart about like who they assign them on. Like the reason why I like going after a guy like Fournier is because he's 6'7". Like if you're going to have Pat chase one guy, you can have Fournier chase the other guy, and then AD guards the guy that's just kind of standing around. It's just going to be up to Darvin Ham to be smart and be inventive about it. Let's see here. What happens if Utah decides to keep Mitchell? They can. I don't think they will, though. I don't think you trade Rudy Gobert to a division rival and then do nothing else. You let his best friend leave for nothing. Like they let Eric Pascal leave for a 2-way contract in Minnesota. Like they could definitely do it. I don't think they will. They haven't really. Have they done anything to? Like, I'm trying to think. Like I don't think they've. I'm looking at their roster right now. Like their starting center is. It's going to be Walker Kessler, or Udoka Azubuike. Like unless they think that one of those two guys are starting center caliber is better than Gobert, they haven't really addressed anything. And then they just traded Patrick Beverley for Taylor Horton Tucker. So I don't think that's going to happen. If the Lakers were going to deal with Indy, wouldn't that deal be done now? It would be done. Shell, thanks for the question. It would only be done if they agree on like the compensation. I think the holdup is compensation. How many picks Indy wants? Is the Jazz trade more likely based on this? I think the Jazz trade would cost less because we're helping them get Donovan Mitchell. Because if we help them do that, then they can get the 5 picks that they want from the Knicks. And that's probably a big part of the negotiations. They want the Knicks to unprotect some of those picks. But we're helping facilitate it with the salaries that they need to move around. So it removes their long-term liability. The Lakers lose both picks with the trade? No, the Lakers don't lose any picks. The trade that I had originally mocked up, the Lakers were giving 1 first-rounder to the Jazz. But I don't know what the protections would look like. I just assumed it'd be very, very lightly, like maybe top 4, top 2 protected. But I had only 1 first-rounder going to the Jazz. That's what I had heard. They're not asking for a lot. And then the fact that we traded Taylor, again, they took on more salary. We didn't give them any picks. I don't think they need picks from the Lakers. They just need to get what they want to get. Can't the Lakers only take 3 players back if Russ gets traded to the Jazz? So we have 2 open roster spots right now. If we trade Russ and we get 3 players back, yeah. But the way that the rules work, thank you for the follow-up question, Shell. Like the way the rules work, the Lakers have to send something to the Knicks. So in my mock trade, I originally had Wenyen Gabriel, a very small salary going to the Knicks. So it was 2 out and then 3 coming back. So now you can do 2 out, 4 coming back. And it fills all 15 of your roster spots. I don't know if they'll do that, but yeah, that is a consideration they should have. We currently have, let me just confirm because I have it up here. We currently have, we don't include, we got 6. Yeah, so we have 13 players on the roster. As of right now, yes, that's what we have. And then we could still weigh Wenyen Gabriel. So we can create 3 roster spots, an additional roster spot by doing it. So you can do 1 for 3 and still have 1 extra spot available. So they could take a lopsided deal. If the pick cost is the same, do you prefer the Utah route? Thank you for the question, Bobby. If you mean 2 first rounders, I would go with who's the more flippable salary? That's a tough question. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how to answer that. I don't like either of those deals if we're going to give 2 first rounders for them. And I'm going to take one last one. I'm just reading through your questions. Would you care about this question's from Johnny? Would you care about giving up both firsts if we got Reddish, Wenyen plus 2 second-round picks in the Spider deal, Buddy and Miles? I don't think I don't like getting Reddish back is more like if we give up a first round pick, try to get a young player back, not just old guys, right? Because Pat's 34, we gave up a young player. Any trade that involves us giving up 2 first round picks, I'm very, very much against that. Unless those picks are like both of them are like lottery protected. There has to be strong protections on them. But that's really what it is. And then the last one, I'll have. Oh, okay. So Tyler, here you go. Thank you. Talking about the Boyan matchup against Indiana, like 7 games, 2018, he had a 30-point game. Like he's a gamer. Like he doesn't like. I'm not saying he's going to be the reason we win a championship, but he'll compete. That's the good part about it. So yeah, I think that's going to be all for all the questions. We're right at an hour. I appreciate everybody joining. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. This will be up on the YouTube, and I'll make sure I share it again in the morning for the folks that miss it. As always, if you can you can subscribe. I appreciate it. If you subscribe, you can join me in these chats. We can talk basketball and stuff like that. And I'd rather do that than me just talk the entire time. I didn't have anything to share in terms of tape and stuff like that, but I've been pulling tape on Miles Turner, on Lonnie Walker. So that I think the next one that we'll do, I keep saying it, but I don't do it. But eventually I'll end up, we'll watch some tape together and you guys can see just kind of what my process is when it goes to it. So if nothing else, I appreciate you guys joining. I hope you have a wonderful evening, wonderful day, wherever you're at. And, we'll just wait to see what the next chapter of this saga is. So I hope you have a great day.